Thank you always for staying with Sunrise, and welcome to our Man's World discussion. Today we look at balancing professionalism with personality in relation to customer service and how we tend to treat our peers in the workplace. Let's welcome our guests, Conroy Thompson, People Development Strategist, and Odane Brooks, Research Consultant, to discuss more. Good morning, gentlemen, and welcome.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for having us.
I think the first thing that we need to look at is to define really what's personality and what's professionalism. Conroy, I want to start with you.
Definitely. So personality speaks to the set of characteristics and cognitive behaviors that really and truly guide and pattern how persons would go about doing certain things. And that can come from either a biological side, that learned stage, or the environmental side of things. It is that combination that sometimes is misrepresented in the workplace as somebody having, that's my mood, or which is something totally different from your personality. It also speaks to you being either open, or do you have an open personality? Are you more an emotional, the emotionality of things? Do you have a honest one, you humble side of personality? Are you a more extrovert or introvert? Are you both? And there is something as both. And then you have persons who are, you would call them the agreeable persons, who will just go with anything. Anything that they say, yes, that is correct. Yes, sir, no, sir, that type of thing. And when persons speak of strong personality, it is not really that the person's personality is strong. It is just that it goes against what most people would see as agreeable. So if I am someone who speak up, they're going to, they have a strong personality, but really and truly, is it strong? That's just who I am as an individual.
Well, probably strong because the other person's personality is a little bit tamed compared to yours.
Different.
Right. Mm-hmm. So having heard that, the definition there, Odane, when we talk about customer service in and out of the workplace, how do we now balance the personality and the professionalism?
That's a very good question. So to be able to balance that two delicate aspects of the workplace, we have to first and foremost be mindful of who we're serving. And in being mindful of who we're serving, we're able to make the separation between personalities and customer service, because the ultimate aim is, whether we're in the private sector, the customers are the ultimate individuals in the marketplace that we attempt to satisfy. If we're in the public sector, the citizens are the ultimate customers that we are serving. So ultimately, we have to set standards and be able to draw a line of demarcation to not ensure that personalities override or infringe on the ability of the entity to serve its customers.
I have to jump in here, because you guys are leading the conversation, and as you're talking, I can envision persons watching and saying the following thing: what if my personality match my salary? When I come and talk about customer, me not do more than my pay grade. I want you guys to respond, because I literally see persons looking at the TV saying, but look upon them too, like them think them are pay me for be nice.
All right, listen. Odane talk about, let me tell you a little bit. Satisfying the customer ultimately is why any business is in business. But then we have to also look at the internal customers who we serve first. Now I'm going to jump in now based on what you just said.
Yes.
If me and Odane, can I be real?
Yes.
Have an issue at work, and Odane's job, yes, affects the output that I need to give to the customer. And Odane and I have something at work. Man, him just kick off, and he's supposed to sign off on something. I always bring this up with my students. He's supposed to sign off on something that will ultimately give me, Conroy, the ammunition to serve the customer. And Odane said, so I'm not going to really give him nothing, because he's going to wait. Because we see that he's going to wait. Who is suffering there?
The organization
customer.
is not you suffering, the organization is suffering as a result of that.
Exactly. But then that person who, and remember, we're talking about balancing professionalism with personality. Professionalism, regardless of what happened in the workplace. No, when we, and it happens to all of us, when we think we are not being compensated for the people in the custody office when they come at the tax office, or wherever wherever our place of work is, they're not paying me enough to do this. So guess what? I am only going to do the bare minimum, and that's what it is going to be. Who do you think is suffering at the end of the day, though? Because I always tell people, you never know who is watching you. You know how much time persons steal people from a job based on how they react and how they behave. So it is, you have to look broader than that. So my gentleman or my lady that is watching, that's saying, well, why you know the bare minimum because they're not paying me enough? Remember, the professionalism is on you, not what the customer or that internal person does to somebody else, but that is a representation of you.
But let's look at it a different way, because we can't leave it up to people to be professional just like that. There are certain standards which organizations put in place.
Absolutely.
And the professionalism will be defined by those standards that are set by the organization. I want you to elaborate a little bit more on that for me, Odane.
That's an important point, because as within organizations, you have to establish what are your customers' performance indicators. And so as an organization, you have to ensure that internally you establish standards. And this is where I believe training is important, because you have to ensure that those standards, the staff internally can understand and identify with those standards. And so they can project to the public. And as an important dimension of this is to have customer satisfaction surveys. And so you can gauge the feedback from the public, whether private or public sector, how you're delivering the service, what are their views on quality, as well as customer relations. So it's important that internally, your internal staff can appreciate what the standards are for customer service, and so they can reflect those standards while the organization does ongoing monitoring to ensure that those standards are being met and exceeded.
And when you talk about standards here, what about the organization? You know, a man just decide to start a business but don't have the requisite training, don't know how to train staff.
And him doing a thing.
Doing a thing. And so as we, recognize Customer Service Week this week, good? How do we now reach out to those organizations to help them and their workers extend to you the courtesy or the courtesies that I would want to experience in a well-established organization, to feel comfortable going there to do business, to speaking with the workers, because there is customer satisfaction in every way, a very nice environment. So how do we reach out to those people, Conroy?
All right, the first thing that we have to get right is the mindset. So yes, we're just doing nothing, but what does that thing, what do you want that thing to become? So you have to think about investment. And when I say investment in building your brand, your business to a certain level. So whether if it's a patty shop that just sell patties on the side of the road or wherever. I remember a few years ago, and I know that you guys would have remembered. You remember that this lady that was selling, I think she was selling peanuts in the middle of the on the road, and I mean it was in the media for some time, and how she brought it across and how she looked and how you have to change the mindset. Number one, a lot of these small businesses, and I will say a lot of small businesses don't see the function of training as absolutely necessary. They don't. They think it's a waste of time. right? Oh, I'm going to train them to leave. But there's this saying, what if you don't train them and they stay? However they represent your business, it is what is going to be out there. So first and foremost, there are myriads of training opportunities that small businesses can tap into through, you know, the small business associations. Hard Trust have a lot of these trainings. You have persons who do one-on-one trainings. You have a myriad of training solutions online right now that persons can tap into and really and truly build their little thing. And because I'm sure when they start out, they're not saying, you know what, we're going to only make $500 this week. I'm sure when they start their business, they are looking to build it in such a way. So why not build it from the foundation with the right stuff? But the mindset have to change and to understand and recognize that it is important for training to take place.
You see, Conroy, I have to jump in here because you know, we're speaking and we're talking about mindset and we're talking about standards, but there is a cross section or a crossroads where the personality of the person, because of the restrictions within an organization, they lose identity, they lose self. I won't get into the whole thing about grooming and all kind of stuff, but persons feel trapped in a particular system or a standard that even when you speak of the patty shop, and I must say there are patty shops that are very professional more than a lot of things, so we should remove that from our thinking.
Absolutely.
Yeah, our examples of what we're talking about, basic business. But I just wanted to address the fact that sometimes an organization can kill somebody's personality, and then the output, because of the standard of professionalism, might not even work or complement the business, but you're trying to put it into the business model, and it kills customer service and it kills growth. I would like I would really like you and Odane to address that aspect of it, please.
No problem, because guess what happened? You will know. I am going to say this. I have to say it. You will know as a team member. As a team member, you will know when something is going against what you stand for, or it is suffocating the life out of you. You will know. You will know if you're stuck in a situation that, well, I really cannot do this. What they're asking for, I cannot do. And it's sometimes for you to have that conversation with yourself. You know that when you put on your clothes this morning, you're the big sigh, Lord Jesus, I'm going to the plantation now. That type of, you know, when you're going. You understand what I mean? So you have to take yourself out of that misery and the company, because if you stay in there, you're going to be miserable, and the customers are going to be miserable, and the people that you work with are going to be miserable. You have to get honest with yourself. Odane, I don't know if you have.
Yes, Odane.
At that point, I think it's important for organizations to maintain that delicate balance. So while you want to maintain professionalism, I believe you should provide room for self-expression in the context that those self-expression operates within the best interest of the organization. So I believe that diversity policies are important to speak to some of these issues that are important to individuals, because we cannot necessarily stifle the entire creative aspect of individual, because that goes into their overall productivity. But at the end of the day, the organization must set some parameters as to what is acceptable and what it can allow within the context of it being an entity serving the public's interests.
But also, Odane, on the other side, and we're talking about the entity here, and that's fine. But then what of the individual who is in that entity? If, yes, you want to produce and you want to make sure that everything is done according to what the company wants, but there is something called an organization fit. Many of us, we don't pay attention to that. We see the position, we jump at the position. It is something that we want to do. Yes, we're going to do it and whatever. And when we immerse ourselves into that organization, whether it's a culture is toxic, whether it's the culture is stifling, as you mentioned, whether it's a culture is not allowing for that expression, for you to to feel alive when you come to work. Yes, they hire you to do a certain job, but as you mentioned, and it is clear, you can only do so. We are not machines. We are not machines to be programmed to. Listen, the factory setting where you put on a sleeve and then you move the sleeve to the shirt to somebody put on the collar and all of that. We are not there. We have evolved as people. We have decided that our personality will shine through and make sure that it needs to delicately.
We were once there, Conroy, but we locked down free zone. But anyhow, that's a different discussion. But hold on 1 second there. You know, sometimes it's interesting that people just want a job and they get a job because they have a salary or wages to get at the end of the month or every 2 weeks. And that's all there is to it. Customer service means nothing. But sometimes when we cease to enjoy that which we do, it's time to move on. But sometimes we sit as a relic in the same position and we complain in and out. It's time to move on. But here's the specificity. We've spoken about the external customers. We want to look a little bit at the internal customers because the way we treat ourselves, the way we treat our co-workers, the things how we relate to each other within the workplace, the way we view the boss, oftentimes trickle down to how we extend the services and the courtesies to our external customers. And it is something that we see happening in many organizations. So let's talk a little bit around that. Conroy.
But Conroy, I'm asking you, I'm just going to ask you, everything Adrian said, but in the context of the government workplace. Nice.
Okay.
No, but not just government workplace, because we don't just go to government agencies or ministries to conduct business. We go to supermarkets, we go to stores, we go to private organizations.
Oh, yes.
And sometimes we just have those experiences.
We do. The thing about it is, and I said it when I talked, you know, when I made the opening statement, we serve each other first. That's the first line of service to create. And I try not to use customer service. I use customer experience. It is the experience that you give from start to finish that makes it's an elevated experience. Now, if that experience is not elevated internally, it will trickle down, as you mentioned. So, what of the person with that strong personality, like myself, who don't back down when somebody say or cowers under somebody's, demand? How do they come at me? We have to look at all of these little intricacies in the workplace. You know, is the boss having a bad day? Well, if the boss having a bad day and he come in and come at me the wrong way, oh, my face screw all day. And the customer now is seeing that. We have to practice, and it is very important, and that's a training that I think persons, all levels of society need to engage in. Emotional intelligence.
I agree with
all
that.
The way down.
Conroy, I agree with that. But I'm going to ask Odane to answer the internal aspect of it. Because all we're just always talking about interfacing or interacting with the external customer. But
because it all goes back to that.
Let me use the word. Let me not dance around the elephant in the room. There are toxic environments that you have to go in because you have to make a living and you have to deal with people who are permanent fixtures from before you're born them dead and they're still dead.
And that's okay if they want to be there.
But that's fine, but it's how they treat you because they think that in an organization, it's them own it and they're also employees of a business. Odane, please address that.
If I may answer it in the context of government service you would have asked about earlier.
Yes.
I believe that government ministries and agencies, they are becoming more cognizant of the need to establish customer service standards. Yeah. And we can see the push by different agencies and departments to utilize ISO standards because these are internationally recognized standards that helps organization to serve both its internal and external customers. So I believe that there is a recognition that internally, if the staff are not happy, if the staff cannot get along, there is the recognition that it filters into the overall customer service that is being delivered. And if I may interject also, while the profit motivation is not necessarily there for the public sector, it is important that these organizations develop standards so that the staff can see clearly what are the implications for public perception of how these agencies are delivering services.
Yeah, but the relics are not readily embracing these standards. I mean, we have persons, when they're in an organization and they feel they own the organization, they're there for 20, 30, 40 years. Well, this is how I've always done it. Why you think we need to do it any other way? And I'm going to say, a lot of them, they are not open to embracing, you know, how things are becoming
the changing times.
I mean, we have to get there.
But if truth be told, though, I mean, when you talk about government agencies, there are some government agencies and ministries that have received ISO certification. The Cabinet Office and the Office of the Prime Minister has a responsibility to help those government agencies to raise the bar of excellence and standards. So that has been an ongoing project. There is a competition around those agencies like PICA and NHT, which constantly wins the competition in terms of customer service. So those things are in place. But this is the thing about it. And we must call a spade, and I think we are all not standard bearers. No. Good? Of balancing personality and professionalism. There are days. There are days when we're just not in it. There are days when we kick off with people. And there are days when the personality just shines through, erasing the professionalism. So we now have to look at it from our own perspective. And how is it that we need to balance both to be a good example for others to follow, so that we can, you know, extend that courtesy so that everybody feels comfortable who works around you. Good? And I think that's where we need to tackle it internally, given the standards.
Well, you know, we don't wake up on the right side of the bed every
Not
day.
every morning.
I mean, because things happen. We are human beings. We're on our way to work, something wrong with the car, whatever. However, should your clients interface or your internal customer, should you blow up on your co-worker just because you're having a bad day? What trigger will that do to the other person? So again, it has to go back. If you have to take some time, because these are tips now I'm giving to, or you can strike that balance. When I'm because it's not every day I'm a smiling person, but then I know how my outlook will affect my team. So if it's taking some time, I'm 5-10 minutes, you know, when I get in, to kind of shut away, to kind of center myself, get back to where I'm at, because at the end of the day, I am here to serve them. So my issues that I'm having, and again, because we're human beings, and we all have those days, and we all have those bad moments, and getting a bad news and all of that, we have to remove ourselves sometimes from the front line to kind of, and front line doesn't mean only like guest facing or customer facing. Frontline mean your internal customers as well, to kind of pull back and if you have to talk to somebody, you call somebody and talk to them, to kind of center yourself, because guess what? At the end of the day, and you made mention of it, everybody on here made mention of it, it is how we because it starts with us. It starts with us. Whatever the boss meet out to us or we receive it, it starts with us. We have two choices all the time. You understand? It is never easy to choose the right one all the time.
And we're going to stop it there. We're going to wrap it there at time because we're out of time. But at the end of the day, there has to be some constant audit that takes place within organizations. We have to support each other as co-workers. We have to be sensitive to other people's needs and issues. Emotional intelligence is not something that everybody has. And so if we can be sensitive to what other people go through and understand that we do have our bad days, then things can go as planned. I'll say thank you to Conroy Thompson, People Development Strategist, and Odane Brooks, Research Consultant, for joining us this morning. But there's a particular organization that has a particular mantra, and it says, give each guest more than he or she expects. Now, if we do that, we'll have a great organization.
That's right.
And make that organization our home away from home. Thank you, gentlemen.